the mysterious metal library in Middle Earth of Ecuador, and you also see a picture of the strange humanoid entities inside the cave that appeared in the picture that they were taking. There's just too many pictures in this article. I'll leave a link below for you. You can quickly, most of the article is pictures. There's just too many, and some of them I can't even copy. But it's metal books, and they have writing that I have never even seen before. This is the entity that showed up in the film, and you can see, obviously, I don't know what it is, some kind of a ghost thing. And it showed up on the film that they took of the men going into the cave. Okay? So obviously, I don't know what this is, but who knows what they were doing? They were probably using black magic, conjuring, whatever. So this article is one of the most indisputable facts that prove the theory of Middle Earth, that it exists, but also the machinations and actions by secret societies to downplay the whole case and make it questionable. The facts, the statement, and the photos show completely different things. This was in 1969 when Moricz Juan, a Hungarian citizen, phlegmatic Argentinian aristocrat, amateur naturalist and expert on ancient myths, announced this fascinating mystery of the eastern jungle of Ecuador. And also we have comments from Eric von Daniken on this. It was not the first journey he made into the intricacies of the subterranean labyrinths, tunnels, and subterranean galleries that are home to over 3/4 of the nocturnal birds whose chicks are sought after by the Shuar Indians. It took undoubted courage and daring to enter the cave due to difficult access. Without any doubt, when the existence of the underground labyrinth system of this cave became known to the world, no one expected it to develop into a story of enigma, but also for the most irrefutable evidence of the theory of the existence of Middle Earth. So reading this statement of findings on July 21st, 1969, the coastal city of Guayaquil, anyone would be surprised by the statement made. This person made, quote, "I have discovered precious objects of great cultural and historical value to mankind, objects consisting mainly of sheet metal that probably contained a summary of the history of the extinct civilization, which to this day no one has the slightest idea who they might have been," end quote, end quote. Ecuador. Now, therefore, it's inevitable to think about the possible relationships between the tablets mentioned by Moricz, found in a secret chamber of the Taos cave, with metal plates where they were decorated and engraved with complex ideograms. And you can see the specifics of the mystery which still beats in the heart of the Ecuadorian jungle, and how Moricz discovered this enigmatic cave that is the most enigmatic of all the others in the world, with hundreds of labyrinth tunnels and tunnels which all point to go down. The location and description of the cave. At an altitude of about 800 meters, that's about 2,400 feet, in an irregular mountainous area in the northern slopes of Cordillera del Condor, the Condor Range Mountains, the main entrance is located in the underworld of the cave of Taos, where today no one knows where it is, but no one can determine where it is, although many say it's under the riverbed. The entrance is under the riverbed. The entrance from the inside, the only access now consists of a vertical tunnel, which looks like a kind of a chimney, about 2 meters in diameter, that's about 6 feet, and 63 meters deep from the mouth. The descent is very difficult, and so is the ascent. It's done with rope and pulleys. From there begins a vast complex of labyrinth navigation of miles of mystery that shifts into total darkness. It's said that even the most powerful lenses in the world cannot illuminate the entire cluster. Because of its archaeological value, it has not yet been explored by speleologists, and I'm very afraid that it will never be explored because of the most ancient secrets it hides inside. Secrets which are mainly technological, but mainly, as some say, they come from Middle Earth. I'll analyze it below. Native Indian outside the cave. Now, the cave is called Taos because the cave system is home to some nocturnal birds called Taos. Stetornis caripensis, which are the same species found in other caves in South America. For example, the Gauchoras in Venezuela. The original study among the nocturnal bird species was examined in detail by the German scientist Alexander von Humboldt. Von Humboldt, in his book Journey to the Equatorial Equinoctial regions of the New World, dated 1800. In the area around Cueva de los Taos live the Shuar Indians in Ecuador, who were formerly known as Jibaro, a derogatory name for these indigenous Indians, who are also known from the past for their bravery and the art of reduction of the heads they were chasing, shrunken heads. The first explorer of the cave, every April they would go down to the cave to steal Taos chicks, which are bigger than a pigeon, and they have very tasty meat. Inside this cave they discovered a series of finds that showed that there was a huge and unknown civilization in there. The most impressive undoubtedly was the discovery of the giant boulders. Their angles and their symmetry seem to be of artificial origin. Now, Moricz, during a visit to eastern Ecuador, was able to communicate with difficulty with the locals in the Magyar dialect, a Hungarian language similar to the ancient Shuar dialect. I mean, how did they end up speaking a Hungarian language there in Ecuador? That's very strange. Obviously, Moricz knew exactly what he was looking for. Since 1950, he's been collecting information piece by piece that could lead him to the underground kingdom. Some sources state that he was a member of the strange Hungarian-German inner order. Some speculate that he belonged to the secret society Lords of the Black Stone. Remember, you can refer to my articles on Briels to see exactly what it means and what this secret class is, which could explain the deep inside knowledge this man possessed in his controversial media interviews. Anyway, Moricz, doing research in Peru, Bolivia, and Argentina, became interested in Ecuador. In more than one interview he had done, he said this, quote, places like Cusco, Lake Titicaca, and Tierra del Fuego are the possible places where, quote, you can descend into the underground kingdom of Middle Earth, end quote. According to him, the cave of Taos is only one of the many structures to this world that are lost, but also the most impressive. The metal plates of the father priest Crespy. Perhaps the most disturbing and strange references are the existence of the metal library. If it exists, always with the testimony of Moricz, it is inside the cave. There is the history of humanity of at least 250,000 years. To see the relationship with these plates, we will see the strange objects that were kept in the Salesian Father Carlo Crespy in the courtyard of the Church of Our Lady of Help of Cuenca. These objects were found by the locals, where, as an act of kindness and trust, they gave them to Father Crespy. The conclusion of the international campaign of the Taos Cave, Moricz accepted the cooperation since he was the leader of the expedition, and that nothing would be harmed, but neither would they be taken from inside the cave. As expected, he did not accept the offer. He immediately rejected the presence of Moricz in the campaign and communicated with the government of England. And the result? Oh, that's fireworks. Somebody's getting married. In July 1976, he undertook the Ecuadorian British campaign with a formidable scientific and military staff. And to add the icing on the cake, the presence of U.S. astronaut Neil Armstrong went into this cave. Of course, this was not the astronaut's first foray into the place where there were rumors of an ancient unknown civilization. But let's not forget that Neil Armstrong belonged to the secret organization of the Illuminati, although he was the last cog, the kid on errands. Just remember his frequent visits to Paysandú, Uruguay, due to the intense aurora UFO activity popularized by the Brazilian author Triguerino. And there's pictures here of Neil Armstrong back in the cave. Now, the Ecuadorian British research was developed for 35 days. The installation of the generator in the base camp, a few meters from the entrance of the cave, descending into the depths every day to develop the geological and biological research. According to the final report, the committee of scientists concluded that the Taos cave was not man-made, and that there were no signs of human activity, that everything was done by nature. This is, of course, a huge lie, because of photos and everything today, even today, other archaeological researchers who have entered the cave state that there are buildings inside the cave adapted so that they are one with the cave. All of them have been looking to find the metal library since then, but so far have had no luck. And inside the cave, this is where the human actions are seen. Moricz inside the cave. The puzzling find, due to the clear infrared boulders that can be found inside the cave system, are very similar to those found, surprisingly, by the archaeological team of the expedition midway between base camp and the junction of Coangos with the Santiago River. They found a megalithic wall about 4.5 meters long and 2.5 meters high. The mission who has his hand in the middle is Moricz. Now, the speleologist Julio Goyen Aguado, present during the first expedition to Taos Cave, including the Ecuadorian British raid, determined that in 1976 the expedition was financed by the Mormon Church, as the metal plates hinted, and reminded Moricz that he received the gold plates from Joseph Smith at the hand of the prophet angel Moroni. Now, this is getting complicated, obviously. Now, considering various Mormon myths suggest that these records are hidden somewhere in the Andes, it's curious to note that the area where Taos Cave is located is called Morona, similar to the name Smith sent to communicate. Anyway, when Aguado died, suspicions grew that Stanley Hall belonged to the UK Secret Service. Apart from being an official and a ranking member of the English Freemasonry, he was very interested in finding this metal library. Nevertheless, although the topic of the metal library has attracted many questing adventurers, this find has indeed misled those who began their search for the true secret underground world. That a technologically advanced underground civilization made the metal plates, Moricz and Armstrong in the cave. After all, the mission's report revealed the real secret found in the cave of Taos. They took 4 boxes sealed inside wood that were not allowed to be opened by the Shuar, who felt they and their group were cheated. Today, it's clearly remembered that a sad episode of looting of antiquities by the English. The locals believe that they have found the metal library and have removed most all metal objects from the caves. When Neil Armstrong left the cave, where he stayed in Taos for 3 days, he told the media that his visit to the underworld had exceeded the limits of his survival on the moon. What did he mean? The conclusion is yours to make. Everyone and everything had gathered around Juan Moricz, but in hindsight, it was the wrong center. From 1969 to 1991, the year he died, the Library of Metals was never found again. That because Moricz was not the creator of the story that was clear, as von Daniken reminded himself on page 53 of his book. In the 1973 interview with Der Spiegel, Moricz confirmed that an anonymous person had shown him the cave. Who was that man? Another photographic proof of the cave that has undergone human treatment. When Moricz died, some decided to track down this third man who had disappeared into the shadows. Hall had a name, Petronio Jaramillo, but nothing more than that. Moricz died in February 1991, and Hall said, "I had a name and a phone book, but there were too many Jaramillos in Quito. Finally, I found him, or rather his mother. It was September 1991 when she gave me her son's phone number. I called him. He told me that it had been 16 years before they parted ways. He was willing to meet me and stated that he needs 3 days to meet me." Jaramillo confirmed that when Moricz arrived in Guayaquil in 1964, he partnered with the lawyer Gerardo Peña Mathus. Moricz Mathus said that his theory of how the Hungarian people had its root is almost in every culture, through acquaintances such as Andre Fernandez Salvador Zaldumbid and Alfredo Mobius. Moricz and Jaramillo met at Mobius's home, and from there Moricz began to recount Jaramillo's story. He was annoyed with himself because various people had tried to turn him on to Jaramillo as early as 1975, but that was in 1991 before the two men met. Protocol paper issued for Moritz's investigations, and the lawyer's card. But there is evidence to suggest that this is not the case. When Hall showed Moricz a manuscript about his 1976 campaign, Moricz refused to return it. This ended their friendship, but I never understood why until 1991, when I realized that the manuscript referred to Jaramillo. Moritz's name was not wanted published as confirmed in a German newspaper in 1973. Quote, Moricz was incredibly stubborn and equally incredibly loyal, but he was obviously the wrong man, and it was a big mistake if he thought he could ever communicate the discovery of the century, end quote. Only from Jaramillo were they able to learn the true history of Taos metal library. Jaramillo stated that he had discovered the library in 1946 when he was 17 years old. This is evidenced by an uncle of his whose name was known as Blanquito Pelado, which showed a loving man. Friendly relations with the local population of Shuar Indians were evident. The natives invited him to see a secret in gratitude for the kindness he showed to the tribe. Jaramillo got into the system at least once after that. On this occasion, he saw a library consisting of thousands of large metal books stacked on store-like shelves, with each metal book weighing about 20 kilograms on average. That's huge. That's a heavy luggage. With each page where on one side it was engraved with ideograms, and on the other hand with geometric designs and written inscriptions. There was a second library consisting of small, hard, smooth, translucent crystal tablets with parallel grooves coated, stacked on inclined shelves of units covered with gold leaf. Findings from the cave lost anymore? There were also animal-human statues, some too heavy for anyone to lift, metal rods of various shapes as well as closed doors to possible tombs covered in mixtures of colors and semi-precious stones. There was a large sarcophagus carved from hard, transparent material containing the skeleton of a huge giant man, where his bones were gilded with gold leaf. In short, he spoke of an incredible treasure, hoarded as if in preparation for a coming global catastrophe. Squared rocks, evidence of human energy. And inside the cave, humanoid flying through the cave lost too. Jaramillo claimed that he and his uncle took several books off the shelves for him to study, but their weight prevented them from putting them back. It also meant that they were too heavy to be removed from the library and revealed to the world. Jaramillo never provided any evidence for his claims, which may explain why he wanted to live in the shadow of this story. When asked why he did not take pictures of the metal library, he said the pictures would not prove anything. In this, I believe that he's absolutely right, because even if there were photos of unbelievers, the unbelievers would still say they were fabricated, and even if he lived today, they would say that they are a product of Photoshop, just so that there is no continuation of the issue. Also, Jaramillo stated that he had left his initials on these 7 books, so that if the library was ever found, it could prove that he was the one who had entered there. Moricz and Jaramillo both died in their 60s. Both emphasized that the area is ace of not the real El Dorado, letting the world know that there is gold everywhere. The streets are literally paved with it, they said. Even if the books in the library are made of gold, although Jaramillo never spoke of gold but of metal. In fact, it seems that copper was an ingredient, as Jaramillo had said he had seen a green color in the books. Was Moritz's presence in the area why he conducted extensive gold prospecting? No, his interest in the library was not for gold value, but for its historic significance. Goldography from the metal library, that was lost too. Also, various treasure hunters in the past had tried to enter the cave without any results. Contact was made with Jaramillo in the 1960s through the same channels that later brought Moricz to him. Turola was obsessed with the metal library and wanted to have absolute proof about Casey's prophecies, Edgar Casey, but Turola's attitude and sense of organization meant he never got the two together. Turola Jaramillo pressed for details, but they were reluctant to offer. So Turola chose to look around the Cueva de los Taos, where he came up empty-handed. The most active Indiana Jones in the world today is Stan Gritzt, who knew Juan Moricz as well as his close friend Zoltan Zeller, as well as a good friend of Hall's. In 2005, Gritzt wrote, "As I write these words, I am in negotiation with the native Shuars who live near the Cueva de los Taos, whose permission is necessary for me to enter and explore the area of caves. I intend to launch an expedition in the coming months to search for the secret cave entrance from which the alleged metal library can be accessed. Many people have entered the cave from the familiar vertical entrance near the top of the mountain. However, I estimate that it's also almost impossible to gain entry to the metal library. The secret entrance is only accessible underwater," he said. He said Jaramillo always said the entrance was under the river. And then we have other views of caves here. Just before the cave, megalithos with strange carvings. Pieces of rock through the cave, lost too. Supposed cave entrance of the metal library. Although he never learned the location of the room from Petronio Jaramillo himself, after Jaramillo's research and father death in May 1998, he organized a trip, Mario Petronio, Jaramillo's son, in which they combined their knowledge of the location. The voyage had to be abandoned before the disputed 0 point could have been reached. In May 2000, he returned to the search. Quote, "We were prepared for this mission in the 1990s when Petronio requested diving equipment as a necessity. This need was for them to dive in order to find the main entrance of the cave that would lead them to the room of the metal library. He showed me aerial maps pointing out a bend in the river that meets a fault, which is known to open up into a cavernous underground system for water to run for several kilometers. His suggestion is that line damage and evidence of an ancient earthquake opened up the underground network, which someone at some stage in the distant past then discovered and used as a site to install the metal library. Aerial photos showing the point of the cave. The need for cooperation. So what happened next? He was 64 when he last traveled to the area. He's now 73. When he was 68, he decided that it was more than likely that he would not see the story end. However, they do not consider his story to be wrong or false, and he did not want to make the same mistake as Moricz did. So on January 17, 2005, he informed the Ecuadorian government of the location of the cave matching Jarillo's father's description, which he hopes will become the focus of a campaign. For anyone interested, the location is at 77 degrees 47 minutes 34 west and 1 degrees 56 minutes 00 south. Google Earth can and does bring you very close to and can satisfy any initial curiosity. But knowing the place does not mean it will be easy to find this room. They believe that it will take decades or a paradigm shift before people can work together in a way that will lead to a successful goal. He claims that in 1976, the mission succeeded because there was then a military regime in power. A democratic bureaucracy would be overwhelmed the mission before crossing with any bogey. Now, this is what is required is a sense of cooperation and transparency. Too many people have tried to use the metallic library as evidence for their own theory, whether it be foreigners or even locals. Maybe that's why the missions were doomed. Perhaps we should let the metal library speak for itself. The answers to the questions as to who made it, where they came from, and what they accomplished, etc., can all be found inside the structure itself. And let's look at the case of Padre Crespy. The following film is from Los Invincibles Suar del Alto Amazone, 1927, by Salesian Padre Carlos Crespy, the first film about Shuar community life and culture. The Shuar are the indigenous people of Ecuador and number 70,000 people with 400 communities, and they call them invincible because neither the Incas nor the conquistadors were able to dominate them. Many people may not know that Crespy's collection is one of the most amazing collections of ancient art from South and Central America ever assembled. Father Carlos Crespy was a Salesian monk who lived in Ecuador. He did missionary work among the Indian population in remote valleys during his lifetime. Crespy had received and purchased many exhibits from the indigenous people in Ecuador. When the natives were asked where they found them, they said they had been found in underground cave systems in the jungles, where an underground civilization had built them and abandoned them for some unknown reason. Going to the cave, as time went on, many of these works of art were collected and kept in the courtyard of Maria Auxiliadora Church. Unfortunately, many of the items were destroyed by a freak fire in 1962, and later the temple was renovated. Also, many were lost to treasure hunters. And then Crespy passed away, and the rest of the items in the original collection were removed and became inaccessible to the public. Some may still be stored in the cellar of the Maria Auxiliadora Church, but the church denies it, but also does not give corresponding permission for someone to see if it's there or not. The age and provenance of these elements is still unknown today. Father Crespy never tried to classify them. Patterns and images are strange, their meaning is not understood. These objects show the images of unknown ancient civilizations. The most famous pieces are the tablets of silver with gold leaf, pure gold, or other alloys, with unknown linear series and mysterious symbols. Some natives, where they spent a lifetime in the company of the Father, when asked about the work of art, replied that they had been made by los que vive en la clandestinidad, those who lived underground. What should be pointed out is that the indigenous Indians of the area, called the Shuar, are convinced that La Cueva de los Taos is one of the many entrances to Middle Earth. If you ask them how they are sure about this, they'll tell you that thousands of years ago their ancestors had met people from the underground civilization without knowing the existence of the cave. Also referred to them as flying people with magical wings, very reminiscent of the faction adventure written by Real MLordandGod. Information can be found in articles. They are also not the only indigenous people who believe that underground civilization exists. From Canada, America, Central America, and all of South America to Patagonia, the indigenous Indians believe and have a lot of stories to tell you about the civilizations of Middle Earth and how one can go there. And if you notice pictures listing the article, they're unique and unlike any other culture. The fact that they disappeared, were stolen, or sold after the death of the priest who protected them is very strange, because none of these finds have appeared anywhere in the world, even in illegal antiquity trade. So obviously they've hidden them somewhere. That means they're altogether somewhere. We're talking about over 1,200 items, and we have to thank Messieurs Armstrong and Dinningen von Daniken for their tales that poured tons of ink into the whole affair that may have done it for their own purpose, although I personally believe that there were other reasons, says the writer. The most remarkable thing, after the mission of the British Ecuador throughout the specific area, guerrilla warfare began with the result that a lot of blood is shed. So a lot of these secret services, America, Britain, in consultation with the secret societies, Illuminati, Masons, did what they wanted in the cave. It's certain that this is an underground culture where the priesthoods did everything to take everything from there, with a lead as everything shown from the priesthoods. Now, in quotes, there are some researchers who say in closed circles that 60% of today's technology, especially the field that has to do with microchips, chips simply, but also has to do with them. It sounds a bit unbelievable, but it's not. You just have to run into two photos that show two square sheets carved as if they were chips. The kind of technology will be amazed as to what it's all about. Unfortunately, as you have understood until now, the big states which are governed by Freemasonry commanded, they where they report everything to Illuminati, and they in turn report to the some other areas, some other people. And there's also the paradoxical photo from the last mission done between 2000 and 2007, where a face formed from almost made like fog can be seen in the photo. None of the members of the expedition understood anything except the cold draft. Maybe it's a ghost of someone lost or someone from the underground culture who no longer wants this place to be desecrated. The future will tell. The strange photo depicting the ghostly form inside the cave. If you don't believe in something, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Now, this I've translated for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.